Friends, welcome back. We're
Mhm.
joined by Kelly Galindo, and this is the second time she's come on, so we must be doing something right on this channel. I'm really happy to see you again, my friend. When we talked last time, you introduced your film 26 Seconds, and you talk about a subject that very few people, well, a lot of people just kind of close their ears and shut their eyes about, which is sex trafficking. So, first of all, for the new listeners, could you give the ones who didn't hear the first interview, and audience, I'm going to link that in the description box and the pinned comment so you can check that out because we're going to be picking up from there because she has some new projects. But could you please tell me how the hell are you doing since I haven't seen you for a while? And then how is it briefly that you came to do what you're doing now?
Um, First of all, thank you for having me on again,
Thanks for
Doug,
coming on,
because
Kelly.
this is such, I'm honored, and it's such an important topic. And,
Mhm.
it's Super Bowl weekend, and most people don't realize that sex trafficking is rampant at the Super Bowl. It's not just the
Mhm.
Super Bowl, it's also Olympic events. Basically, pimps bring in young girls to where there's men at,
Mhm.
at, at big events. And I, I filmed, and I think you're going to put the link there. I filmed at the Super Bowl, I think it was 2018, and in Minneapolis. So I have that video for people to see.
While
But
you're
it's the
speaking,
same.
while you're speaking, I'm gonna link up your YouTube channel and show people. So keep talking.
Okay. Um, anyways, people can see. I mean, basically, every Super Bowl event or Olympic event that is going on behind the scenes. That is going on behind the scenes, and it's instead of the Super Bowl using their platform to speak against it, they don't bring it up at all. Why? I don't know. I'm not saying the NFL is involved in sex trafficking. They're not,
Mhm.
but they certainly aren't using their platform to stop it. And that bothers me.
Why do you think that is, Kelly? Because through your adventures, as you mentioned in the last interview, you came, I'm sorry, I'm spitting. You came
That's
to
okay.
basically discover that it started out in Thailand, right? And you were doing
Hmm.
a film project and you didn't really know what you were getting into, but then your eyes opened up, just like me, coming out of a cult, the eyes, the layers peel off. And then you started to realize it was kind of a global problem and all that. How did that kind of
Yeah, I first, which I mentioned in the last show, I had seen a segment on Dateline about sex tourism in Thailand, and I was sickened because
Mhm,
basically it was giving pedophiles a green light to go to a country and rape children.
mhm,
Right. So I was just horrified. So with my background, teaching, I'm a professor at Chapman University at Dodge College of Film and Media Arts. I wanted to do a project that was worthwhile
mhm.
and meaningful because of the fact that when you're on a project, it takes your life. So,
Yes.
I'm too old to be doing bullshit projects. But I had no idea how I was going to do it. And a few years later, I had met somebody that worked for one of the organizations in Thailand, and she introduced me to the international director. It took quite a while, about 6 months to get approved, to film with them, to go with them.
Mhm.
And the rest is history. At first I was just going to do a short documentary, and I did do that, and it did really well. It won like 20 awards. So, that's great. It means that people are watching it, and it's hitting home, which that was the whole point in wanting to do a short documentary on sex tourism. But when I was there, I realized that it was a global issue. I mean, the
Mhm.
organization that I went with in Thailand, they're also in Laos, Dominican Republic, India, Nepal, Philippines. I mean, I
The
was like,
US? The
no,
US?
they're not in the US.
Who are you talking about
They're,
specifically?
oh, it's called Destiny Rescue. That's who I,
Oh, the rescue organizations. I thought you were
yes.
talking about the problem itself. We know the problem
No, no,
itself
no, no,
is
no, no. The problem
global.
itself is men. The problem itself is the lack of education and the lack of prevention and poverty. And there's a lot of things that go into it. But
Mhm.
bottom line is the most vulnerable children, women, poor people are the ones that get trafficked.
Does that always start from I notice in your videos, almost every one of them said it started from abuse, either being molested themselves, and
Absolutely.
is it one for
I
one?
interviewed around 10 survivors in each country and about 26 here in the US.
Mhm,
And every single one was molested as a child. So it's already broken down their value of
mhm.
themselves and them having a say in their body at a very young age. I interviewed 3 pimps and they've all said the same thing. They know who
The vulnerable ones
to
are.
befriend and who not.
God, we're 5 minutes
I
in,
can
you're
tell
gonna
you this, no
make
pimp
me
has ever approached me ever in my
well, let
life.
me ask you about that. Why do you so is it because you lack, the childhood trauma that they have, Kelly? Do you have
I definitely
that you
had
don't have that
childhood
you don't have
trauma,
that
but
those blood wounds that somebody would sniff out? Why do you think that would be?
well, I definitely had childhood trauma, but it wasn't molestation.
Mhm.
It wasn't, I wasn't trafficked as a child. That's trauma. You know this
I know,
from,
that's why you're already hitting me, and we're only 5 minutes in.
yeah.
Everything you're saying is resonating with me. Kelly, I've told you before, and I don't wanna compare my experience to what these gals have been through because it's next level shit. That's not what I went through. But I had trauma bonding. I know what it's like to be trapped. I know what it's like to grow up with narcissistic parents. I'm not blaming my parents. I don't blame everything on that. But I know deeply, man, what trauma
Mhm.
does to kids. And just like you, I'm super sensitive to it.
Yeah.
In the supermarket, if I see any little thing, I try to keep my mouth shut nowadays, but I'm parents are the where everything starts. And
Yep.
if you have damaged parents themselves, they're not even necessarily malevolent. They will pass that on to their kids and they'll
Do
fuck
you
them
know
up.
one time, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to call out somebody, but she was a very famous acting coach in Hollywood, training all the stars. And
Mhm.
I sat in on her class, and she was saying, everything was about sex, 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 and and I get that because you've seen me perform. To do your
Yeah,
sexuality on
I
stage is great fun, and people react, whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's not the strongest thing that we have. The strongest thing that we can call from is from our parents, hands
Yes.
down. It's
Yes.
not
Yes.
sexual experiences,
Yeah,
it's
you're
your
right.
parents,
I just
without a
had
doubt.
I just had in Scientology what they call a cognition. That means a light bulb moment or a realization. Yes,
Mm,
exactly.
that's
Wow.
the strongest. So I walked out of her class. I was like, oh God.
So you do you think back to the question that you aren't able because Kelly, I wear my heart on my sleeve and I probably maybe shouldn't. I can almost like feel my own wounds. I don't walk around with that cloud over my head.
Well,
I just
we're
know that
artists, Doug.
well,
We're
I know
artists.
until it just seems like you pull these people to you. So how is it that you don't like you just said you don't really kind of attract them to you or bring them to you. I'm really curious because I wonder if it's not 100% a trauma thing in childhood that then stays with you.
Well,
And
I definitely attracted um
we don't have to
jerks.
get too personal.
I've definitely attracted, not great guys in my life, but never that. Because I've interviewed 3 pimps and they've all said the same thing. Like they know who to
Wow.
approach and who not to.
Did they
It's the
give you what
girl
the
that looks
signs were?
down. It's the
Mhm,
girl that says thank you for a little comment. Because at first they act like their boyfriend. They befriend them.
mhm.
And then 2 weeks later, they take their phone and take
Yeah.
their passports if they're in another country and shove them out on the street and say,
I don't wanna jump ahead here, but that just triggers another question, like, I thought it was really cool how at the end of your video projects, it says the steps to healing were like the 3 Rs, and I believe it was I mean, you can tell me what it is, but I wanted to ask you about this. It was rescue, restoration, get them back to and then reintegration. That's exactly what I went through in Scientology, and I'm doing
that's
the
right.
integration part forever. Do you, there was one that you had before that too, which was
It's prevention,
prevention.
which
That
is not an
is the
R, but
fricking key. How do you
mhm.
think, can you step us through like what is the process like, when you actually have to
You
go through
know,
that? And then but also Kelly, like what your ideas are on restoration to curb the problem before it fricking happens in the first place. So they don't have to go through 50 years of trauma and go through that 3-step process.
well, first of all, you know, my film is showing the similarities of sex trafficking, but also the differences. And there are differences in the sense that, like, Cambodia and India, it's severe poverty. Their own parents will sell their children for survival and really don't think anything's wrong with it. And it's frightening. I mean, it's so, and then like in Iraq and East Africa, you know, it's war, you know, so because I was in Iraq when ISIS was still there, so I mean
Mhm.
it was crazy. And so but bottom line is, the similarities from every country is that somebody is profiting on the vulnerability of poor people, children and women, the most vulnerable.
Right, right, right.
That's the similarity.
How do we fix that?
You know, Doug, it makes me so upset because I don't know if it will be fixed in my lifetime.
Yeah,
All I can do is create awareness and a call to action and educate people, right? And prevention. And so that's why I partnered with these nonprofits, because they're doing incredible work. So I'm highlighting what they do. Deirdre Pujols is she has an organization called Strike Out Slavery with her my cat's gonna walk across
oh,
with
good, let's see him. Let's oh, what a cutie pie. Oh, he's adorable. I'll push him out of
um
the way. If he wants to come in, let him come in.
so cute.
He's a
This is Jimmy Dean. This is my
hey, Jimmy
baby.
Dean.
He's my baby. So they have a organization called Strike Out Slavery. So he's using his platform. He's a baseball player for the Angels. So they Deirdre believes in prevention. So at baseball
Mhm,
games, they like have these events, you know, to educate people, because that's the first step. That's prevention, right?
mhm.
She also has an organization called Open Gate International, which is a culinary school to give these survivors a trade so they can have a job. Otherwise, they're going to go back into to what they were doing to make money. People have to survive. So she believes in prevention. And I mean, of course, they have to be rescued. Of course, they
Mhm.
have to be restored. But if you can really work on prevention and also reintegrate them back into society, you know, so that's where she focuses. Um, but there's another great organization that I filmed called Saved in America. They're ex-Navy SEALs that rescue girls. So they're using their skills that they learned, and they volunteer all their time, and they focus on runaways. So they actually are trying to rescue the girl before she gets trafficked. Sometimes, you know,
How do they
she
do
will,
that? How do they do that?
the parents, and they do it at no charge to the parent, but the parents will let them know that the child's missing, and they do
Mhm.
work with law enforcement, but they go in and get that kid before she gets trafficked. Sometimes she might be trafficked for a week or a month, but that's better than
Mhm.
years.
So they have ways of getting to him. Would they have to go
Mhm.
undercover, Kelly? Are these rogue, like,
These are
organizations? Or
ex-Navy SEALs. They're
yeah,
badass. You have to watch that video. It's called,
I've seen all your
I think it's
videos.
called,
I've seen all your
they're
videos.
incredible. I love that group.
And
Um,
by the way, to the audience, everything we talk about, I'm going to leave a link in the description box so you can get help. Go to some of these organizations that Kelly mentions in these videos, and then also watch her very powerful videos. And at the end, Kelly, you know, I'll give you an opportunity to tell everybody where they can go. But
okay.
please continue.
And then there's another organization called, uh, oh dear, her name's Nancy Rivard, the founder, but it's anyway, she used to be a flight attendant, and she
Mhm,
created, why can't I, airline ambassadors, sorry, airline ambassadors. And so they, because when you're in, it's an incredible organization she built. First it was flight attendants, then they got, you know, the people that sell tickets on board, and the pilots on board, and you know, so now the whole industry. So what happens is when they're in the air and somebody's trafficking a child, they don't have to say anything, but they can tell if the child's uncomfortable, they can tell if the child, you know, that they don't look like the people, and all they have to do is make a phone call, and when the plane lands, it's federal, it's a federal
mhm.
problem at that point. So they have rescued so many kids that were being trafficked from other countries to here, and it's an incredible organization. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because everybody has talents and skills, or the profession. Maybe you're an attorney, so you can help them.
Mhm.
You know, whatever your profession and skills are, you can volunteer that. I'm doing it as a filmmaker. She was doing it as a flight attendant. The ex-Navy SEALs are giving their
That's awesome.
talents and skills. Do you know what I mean? Like
I know what
whatever.
you mean.
Yeah.
And thank you for
And I
doing that,
wanted
by
to
the way.
share with you, which is a video I just recently edited.
Mhm,
On it, it's titled "Boys Are Trafficked Too,"
mhm.
and his name is Tom Jones, and
It's a
he was
very
trafficked by.
it's a very powerful video. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just
It's
got
very
done watching
upsetting
that
to
again.
watch.
I know, it
But
is.
Tom was trafficked by his own father. Long story short, and you know, and he got into drugs, and because we're talking trauma, it takes you on this life of hell, right? But he did turn his life around, and he's a founder now of an organization called the Hope Project, and it focuses on male survivors because males don't speak about it.
No, they
They
don't.
don't. They're too embarrassed to talk about it. So he has this great organization where they can go and feel not alone. And they have to, you have to speak it out in order to heal, in order to have restoration. You must. I encourage people to watch this video because not many male survivors talk about it, number one, but there's not many organizations that focus on males. It's mostly they focus on girls, and it does happen to girls, but it also happens to little boys all around the world.
At age 6, and I quote the number age 6 because that's when I can specifically remember the first time that I was molested by my dad. Of course, I'm not really understanding what's going on at that point. I'm 6 years old, but there's a lot of pain involved, a lot of fear involved, and a lot of desperation involved. You know, I understood that desperation at a really early age of wanting my dad to love me. It wasn't hard for him to convince me to go to the next step when he began to allow numerous different men to come to our home to molest me too. I used to have nightmares about several of them. One in particular, I called him the Strangler because this particular person used to get some satisfaction out of as he would molest me to choke me. I remember just giving up. It was being done. I stopped fighting. I just stopped. He left the room, so I kind of got myself together, and I was, my body was bleeding a little bit, and you know, I kind of took care of that. So I ran home and you know, told my dad what happened. There wasn't any kind of response really at all. As a matter of fact, he sent me back to this person a couple weeks later.
About that video, that was the most powerful video I've seen you put out so far. You
It
know,
was a good one.
it was very powerful, and that guy has a lot of bravery, by the way. Hands, you know, I love that freaking guy, and I never
I
met him.
love Tom Jones. I love
Because like
him.
because like you said, Kelly, obviously I wouldn't say any names, but I had certain people reach out to me that had this problem that we're talking about, and it started in childhood where they were molested and they have to try to make sense of it. And they're males, and nobody wants to talk about it as males. And this guy said it in that video. He said,
Yeah,
the very first step is you just have to say it. You have to actually come out. You have to actually speak
yeah,
it. Coming out of the cult, there's so many people, and I understand it. They're abused.
yeah.
They don't want retaliation. They just don't want to talk about it. Me, I feel like compelled to for however long. Hopefully, I'm
Hmm.
not irritating people. I just have to say it, just to say it, just get it
Yeah.
to say it. The more people that say it, then it's documented. How many of these people, survivors, like actually feel compelled to say it and then therefore inform people? And then what percentage just kind of goes away and doesn't want to deal with
Well,
it?
this
Because
is
it's
the issue.
hard.
First of
Mhm.
all, if they're in the life, they're not saying it. If they're freshly rescued, they're not saying it. They're not there yet, right? It takes trauma therapy. But when they
Mhm.
finally get to us through trauma therapy, then they start speaking about it. But this is the whole point that Tom Jones was making. Males don't talk about it.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Yeah,
We know why that is, right? It's like
yeah.
it's a mock it's just don't want it's the male thing, right?
So I love his organization, the Hope Project. It's
That
called.
guy's fucking awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's what
Yeah,
he's
I
been
do.
through.
That's why it was so important to me to because you know, oh my gosh, in a feature it's 2 hours long, and I filmed in 9 countries. There was no
Mhm.
way I can put everything in it, so that's why I'm really um, um, glad that, I put these videos out on YouTube to highlight these organizations, the work that they're doing, whether it's in rescue, restoration, or reintegration, because they're doing incredible work.
They are, and thank you for doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Not many people are, interested in these fucking dark subjects. I don't want to be doing this shit, Kelly. I don't want to be talking about any of
I
this stuff,
know. I know.
but that was the life and the hand that was dealt me. And I guess,
Mhm.
that's why I love people like that guy in your video, because that guy's been through fucking hell and back. He
Oh,
would have every reason to have killed himself. And then he's one of the probably just few that actually says it and speaks out and
yeah.
does something about it. 'Cause it's so easy just to
And he's such
bury
a,
it and go on with your life. What
he's
was he
such
like?
he's a, just a sensitive
I could tell. I could tell.
soul.
I could tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another thing I tell on him, Kelly, which I've noticed in a lot of survivors that you're videotaping, you can just see, not in him so much, but I could see a little bit of it in the eyes. The eyes are the windows to the soul,
Yeah.
and you can just see you can just see the experience and
Mhm.
the trauma and the PTSD, and there's parts that you can see
Yep.
shut down still.
Yeah.
Does anybody ever make a full recovery where they just become this bright, shiny person and they
Yes. Annie Lobert, the
Oh, yeah,
founder of
that
Hookers for
chick,
Jesus.
she's on fire, man, but
She's incredible.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love Annie.
Do you think that it
That's
takes
another video your viewers can see. It's called
Yeah,
Sex
yeah.
Trafficking in Las Vegas, Hookers for Jesus.
The good part is people like you showing up. I'm so honored. And I was sitting in that seat, Danielle. I was like, why isn't this church full and overflowing? Where are the people? Amen. So we're calling everybody out. Yeah. Amen. And it's happening, and praise God, this fire will not die. We're gonna make it bigger.
Oh, they start grooming them when they're children, especially in other countries.
Mhm.
In Thailand, there's this place called Nana Plaza, and we film there undercover, and they have 4 floors. One floor is, all young girls. One floor is all young boys. One floor is boys dressed as girls. They're called he, she's, or whatever. So people like from Australia, England, America, like they go there and they're shopping what they want. It's disgusting.
How can that be legal, Kelly? Don't they have how can that be
And this is
legal in
the
these
thing,
countries?
Doug. In Thailand, prostitution is illegal, not legal, illegal,
But they
right?
still do it
And
anyways.
and the Nana Plaza is like Vegas. It's like neon lights all lit up. The cops just turn a blind eye because they either are customers or they're being paid.
I remember you
not to shut the place down.
I remember you mentioned that in the last video, and it's just like we live in a
Awful.
very fucked up world. Kelly, I'm not a violent person at all. I'm really not. I'm not full of revenge. It's not my style, but I gotta tell you, when they fuck with the kids, I
Oh,
think any
so upsetting.
grown adult that fucks with the kids should be killed straight up. Like I said, I
I
don't believe in
agree.
any of that stuff. But the fact that it's not only because this is why it's gotten so prevalent as it has to this day. I mean, if people really realize the scale of what we're talking about, and not only that, but any area that you look in, be it Hollywood, the government, whatever, it's very, very prevalent. And these are people that are doing the most sacrosanct thing that you could possibly do. And I speak from experience because my parents aren't evil, Kelly, but they fucked me up for a lifetime, and I have to do the work while they carry on. They have no idea what I've been through. None.
Well, you know what they say, Doug.
But at the same time, I mean, I have to wrestle with all these emotions. And like I said, they think I'm crazy and they just carry on with their life. They think I'm wrong for leaving the cult. It's just amazing, like how much damage how sensitive kids are, how much they download, how open and aware they are from 0 to 6, especially. That's why I'm saying anybody that fucks with the kid, the damage. I'm sorry, this subject just really roused me up.
I know,
sorry.
it's so upsetting. It's so upsetting. Okay, things that I want to share with you. And it's hard because because I get angry and I want
Yeah,
to
me
hate
too.
these people. But bottom line is, hurting people hurt people.
Yeah, I believe me, I understand
You
that.
know, these Johns that have sex with children, they were molested 9 out of 10 times. They
Yeah.
were fucked up themselves by somebody, someone in the family or whatever. And, you know, and I have to remind myself of that. But
Mhm.
I also believe in consequence, and I believe in, you know, you got to take care of the children. So, you know, someone still needs to be arrested. They still need to, maybe, if not be put in jail, then into some kind of rehab. But they need to be away from children,
Exactly.
period.
And it should be a really steep again, you know, they're like you said, they're almost all victims that then become perpetrators. So believe
Yeah.
me, Kelly, being in a
Yeah.
cult, I understand that fine line very, very
Yeah.
well. But at the same time, I just feel like the penalties for that should be very, very stiff.
Oh, I agree.
And it's the
I
opposite
agree.
in general, especially the higher up you go, because
No, I agree.
there's
I
no
agree.
penalties at all
And let
almost.
me tell you something, Doug. This is what's scary. You know, the title of my film, 26 Seconds, is every 26 seconds a child is trafficked globally.
More
That
than
that
that.
that's the statistic.
Mhm.
That's not the numbers online. That's not the numbers of all these underground tunnels where they're trafficking children. We don't know those numbers at all.
What do you think
At all.
what do you think the numbers are from what you've learned?
It's probably
I
every
mean,
1 second.
yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Kelly. Like, this is a subject you're much more of an expert than I'm on. I only have peripheral, you know, knowledge. But so all these years of filming and getting to know it, what did you come away with? What's your vision of, like, what have you seen?
What I came away with, there's only one way out for these girls: freedom, and to have a future.
Spiritual connection
And
too.
it's a spiritual, it's God. There's only one way out. There's no, you can't make it out any other way.
What have you seen with people going
Well, I mean, these girls, well, remember too that I interviewed girls that were rescued, and they were in restoration homes. So
Mhm.
they already had felt love from the staff. They have felt God's grace deeply.
Mhm.
So every single one has been touched by God. And only God can save, especially anyone that's gone through that kind of trauma.
Kelly, maybe that's why certain people that could get traumatized go through a quote unquote spiritual awakening. Because you know
Mhm.
where I stand with I don't do religion, but when you say God, I have my own meaning of that, which
Yeah.
is true. So I would just personally 100% agree with you on that. And so that begs the question, like, you know, the only thing I got out of my trauma, and I wonder if these gals that you spoke with say the same thing. Let me just give you a little backstory here real quick. I talked with this narcissistic psychopath recently. I interviewed him, and he gives you the straight data on, like, you know, how things are. I know it's unusual, but hear me out. He said that I was trying to explain to him that my abuser, you know, I was kind of thanking my abuser because it gave me a spiritual awakening, for lack of a better
Mhm.
term. And without what I had went through, I would just have sailed through life normally blind. And he said, "You never thank the abuser." He said, "That's wrong." He says, did they sign you up for the cult saying, "We're going to give you a spiritual experience so you can have an awakening"? What I wanted to ask you, when you've been really close with these gals and they had that spiritual awakening, they find God.
Mhm.
Um, are they thank do they have the same problem I kind of question, where they thank their abuser? When they integrate the experience, are they thankful for it, or do they harbor a hatred towards their abusers? What's
No,
the
oh
met
no. Every single one of these girls were in love with their abuser.
I meant when they de-traumatize and they
They
ungaslight
they
and
still
understand.
have love for them. You have to
No,
understand, and I think we
you have to
talked
break
about
that
this last
bond
time.
though. Don't they have
Huh?
to break that bond as part of the healing? Don't they have to not love them? Isn't that would be part of the restoration,
I
right?
mean, at some point they can distance and realize that that person took advantage of them. But you have to remember, we talked about this last time, that
Mhm.
these are little girls,
Right, right.
12 years old, with
I'm
a
talking about when they get
30-year-old man that's their pimp. I in my 20s would bond with the guy that I'm dating. You know what I mean? Can you imagine being a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old little girl?
I can't imagine it. It's just so disturbing to even think that a fucking human being would do the kind of shit that we're talking about. What about when they get older, Kelly? So they had that happen as a girl. Let's say they get to their teenagers. Did they get mature enough where they can take on the idea that they were gaslit?
Oh, they become hard. Most of them get on drugs. How else could they get through it? How else, Doug?
Yeah. That's what I was wondering.
I really believe, and I know this is getting graphic, but I've always believed this. When you have sex with somebody, you're exchanging spirits and souls. So if you're being trafficked to 10 different men every day, you'd have to be high.
This brings us back to the spiritual aspect. What do you think about exchanging your soul with so many different people? Do you believe in like possession and stuff like that? Carrying that
Absolutely
energy with you?
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Every time we talk, Kelly, you bring up all these emotions. I'm about to, I don't know if I want to share this or not, but let me just say that, I'm not a believer, but I had to handle that aspect, that dark energy, just because of the environment that I grew up on, and specifically going deeper and deeper and up the levels. So, this is what I was asking you, like, are there any programs that fully heal them, that can get them to deal with these really deep, not only spiritual elements that we're talking about, but to eventually break that trauma bond, realize they were abused in their teens or their later years, and then be able to heal and get on with their life?
Yeah, when they get accepted into a restoration home, they have trauma therapists. They have to.
Psychotherapists, or what? How educated
They're
are
specifically trained trauma therapists, because it's deeper than just. I mean, it's
like family problems. Yeah.
So they have to go through trauma therapy for sure. But what scares me, Doug? I mean, I've had a lifetime of healing, and I didn't nearly go through what these girls have gone through. It's a lifetime of, it comes up when you're dating someone, or you know what I mean? It's like,
I know what you mean.
No, it's something that they'll always deal with.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. It's something they'll always deal with. But these organizations are incredible. They have restoration homes, so they have a home. Number one, they have trauma therapists for them. They teach them, because these girls, didn't even know how to write a checkbook, or, I mean, the pimps do everything. They take all their money, and so they have to learn how to live life, right? So these restoration homes teach them day-to-day living. They go have extreme trauma therapy. And then they move into reintegration, where that they can have a skill. Like in Destiny Rescue in Thailand, they have many things, like little girls can become. They all like becoming hairdressers, but a hairdresser, or work at the coffee shop, or make jewelry, or make these crepes. They give them a crepe cart. So it's a way. They have to be able to make a living. Otherwise, they're going to go right back into the life.
Do they find that the excitement of the life and the money that they were making is a pull back from that new coffee job that they have? In other words, is it a constant struggle for them to give up that life and become a new person?
Yes, because I mean, they're used to making $1,000, a day, and now they're making, $8 an hour or whatever, right?
How did they get over that?
But you know what I told them when I would interview them? But did you keep any of that money? And the answer is always no.
Because it goes to the pimp, right?
They give it all to the pimp.
How much do you think that? Did they still probably made more money in that lifestyle than they're going to make at Starbucks, though, right?
They don't keep one dime. They give every cent to the pimp.
Really?
Every cent. They think just because he has them in an apartment, or
wow. So
these girls make these guys, oh my God, these pimps can make like probably $100,000 a year on one girl, and they have a whole
one girl
on one.
You know what you're describing to me when I'm listening to you talk? They're cult leaders. They have
Yeah,
they have these
you
gals
got that right.
brainwashed. They're taking their money. They have them brainwashed,
Absolutely.
and they're in love. They're trauma bonded with this psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's so trauma
Yes.
is universal. It starts with the parents. There's always a cult leader
Yep.
involved that dominates everybody else and fucks up the majority of people on this planet that are good. I think we just solved it.
And I think, we have a real problem with the social care system. Because,
Mhm.
nothing's perfect. But these kids are pushed out of the system at 18. They they have no parents, no education, no money. So these pimps befriend them and
Yeah.
and not only act like their boyfriend and family, and they're going to protect them and take care of them. They
It's
have no one. It's a real problem, our social care system.
not only that, but what if we could teach this in the education system where we could prove people up about predators and how to think critically? We don't even learn how to balance a
Absolutely.
education system.
Absolutely.
I don't
It's
remember
all in
90% of
prevention.
yeah, I agree with you on
All in
that.
prevention.
Do you have any ideas on that? About
Well, I love what Albert and Deirdre Pujols are doing with Strikeout Slavery. He's using his
Mhm,
platform to create awareness because it's got to start there, right? And then,
mhm.
like we're talking about, whatever your skills are is where you can.
Like what you're doing. Exactly. I guess we have to not leave it up to government or the education system and just
No,
pick up the slack and do it ourselves.
no. These nonprofits raise money on their own. They don't depend on the government to help these girls.
They don't get any government subsidy
I
at
mean,
all?
some little,
Yeah.
not enough.
Why do you think that is? Why would the government recently come out a couple days ago and say we need to give clean crack pipes to all the people on Skid Row, and they're concerned about that ludicrousness? And when it comes to real issues like educating our kids about narcissism, sociopaths, protecting them from predators, how come that's completely absent in the education
Well,
system?
we're on YouTube, Doug, so I can't really tell
No,
you.
you know how to talk around it. I've trained you well. Just use if you have to say something, just
The government
spell it
likes
out.
broken people. That's what I know.
Yeah, yeah.
They
So,
like
yeah,
broken people.
yeah, yeah. I guess abuse is abuse is abuse, right?
Well, it just keeps them controlled.
Exactly. You know, what do you think is going to be the fallout from just the last couple years, for example? Like we talk about, I'm not talking about the C word and what we can't say on YouTube. I'm not talking about that specifically. I'm just
Yeah.
talking about the fallout from people being at home with their predators more.
Oh
I,
my gosh, Doug,
the
this is
the homelessness, the psychological trauma that people are going to go through. What do you think the fallout from this is going to be?
okay. First of all, we're already seeing it. A lot of I
Yeah.
look at this beautiful girl who won Miss America or whatever, jumped out of a
Yeah.
apartment building in New York.
I
We're
saw that.
already seeing it. All these actors, kids that are like 27, 25 are committing suicide. All
Mhm.
these famous actors' kids. No, we are seeing it. And but these children that, first of all, maybe they have come from poverty, right? They used to go to school and get meals,
What?
healthy
Oh,
meals. Or
right,
if a teacher, if they saw them abused, can report it. All these
right.
kids are at home with either parents that are abusive verbally or physically, or worse, molesting them.
Mhm. And that is happening. People don't
It is
we never
absolutely
hear that on the
happening.
news. We never hear any of the unbelievable things that are going on
Yeah,
behind the scene. It kinda
awful.
yeah, and we're gonna feel the reverberations of this for a long time. It almost
Yes,
seems
we
like the
are.
trauma keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Hmm.
And again, Kelly, I'm super sensitive to this just because I grew up in that environment where I had to figure
Yeah,
out my own trauma and shit. And my case is light compared to what we're talking about. Most people, it's nothing. But it just makes me super sensitive on how it
yeah.
just seems to continue on generation after generation. Gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
Kelly, this brings me to since we have the Super Bowl coming up,
Yeah.
and you just did this really excellent video, by the way. Good job on that video, and the one with the boys, which I want to get to as well.
Okay.
But can you tell us a little bit about that? And it's not only prevalent in the Super Bowls, anywhere where there's men, right?
Yep.
But at all kind of all events, the Olympics, etc., right?
Well, even, there's a survivor, and I can say her name because she's out there. She's an
Mhm.
advocate. She works with the FBI. She's incredible. Her name is Ori Freeman. She's in the video, sex trafficking near Disneyland, that video. So
Oh,
Ori, when she was 12, said her trafficker used to take her to motels across the street from Disneyland. She would look out the window and see these families as she
oh
was
my
being raped
god.
by men.
Oh my god.
So it's not just the Super Bowl or the Olympics. It's just where there's people, where there's men.
And can I ask you about women? Because we had the Ghislaine Maxwell thing, the whole Jeffrey Epstein
They're
thing, which is
Doug, I'm
and
glad you
also,
brought that up.
Kelly, I want to talk about Allison Mack too. She got manipulated into Nexium, and then she was sex trafficking children too. First of all, how do you know who the abuser and the perpetrator is? Because it's like brainwash, and then you brainwash, then brainwash. And then also, what about the women? Because that Ghislaine Maxwell was
So let
high
me
profile.
tell you,
How
other
does that happen?
countries like Cambodia and India,
Mhm.
a lot of madams. They're not male pimps,
Really?
they're madams, a lot.
That is
And
disgusting.
oh dear, my cat's like tripping out.
Kelly,
And
women are supposed to have more heart and intuition. That's
I'm
disgusting.
no, and when I was filming in Nana Plaza,
Mhm.
and I looked like a housewife, like because I had, you know what I mean? Like I just had, because it was hot and I had a dress on and
Mhm.
like flip flops, and people were going, come on in, come on. And I thought,
Jeez.
do women come here?
For what specifically? Are you talking
Like
about
come in to be with children. They were
what is it? Like I said, the women's supposed to be the
holy
nurture.
shit.
What is that? And how
I
prevalent
have
is it?
no idea because I feel like you do, Doug. It's like
Mhm.
not a woman.
No, because they're supposed to protect the freaking kids at all
I don't.
costs. What do you have any insight on that? Do you have any insight on a,
They have no
are they traumatized and
spirituality, no
fucked up? Are
soul.
they
They're
just
just about survival and
Did they come from traumatized families? Was Ghislaine Maxwell
probably.
fucked up? And then
Yeah.
I know Allison Mack got manipulated into the cult, and that made her a very evil perpetrator. But then again, do you have any
Yep.
ideas on how to tell who the
Well,
victim
I
is?
also, I interviewed a survivor that she was okay. She was a stripper and then became a prostitute, and she didn't like it. So then she started
Yeah, I
being a
see.
trafficker, and she would get college girls. And she shared with me that she became just, first of all, she was doing a ton of cocaine, and
Mhm.
they weren't human to her. She just was like, rather them than me. She just turned off. There comes a point where, well, they get on drugs, so they're not feeling anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't, yeah.
And that would turn into a life of self-loathing. That would turn into a life of prostitution. I made that decision from being broken. I was a broken human being that had never attempted to get fixed from what I'd been through. I ended up being on the street and feeling like a failure. I made another poor decision and shot up as much heroin as I could find, which is the first and only time I've ever done heroin, and wanted to nod off and die. That was my intention. It should have worked.
I guess with the game or whatever, I got hooked on the drugs, which didn't make it any easier, but it also made it easier for them to control me. Every time you get with a guy that turns out to be a pimp, you end up losing everything. I said something like called breaking a girl, and he would take me in the back bedroom, and he would try to suffocate me. and make me beg him for my life. I was so in love with him. He would take other girls and have sex with them in front of me, to the point that I tried to kill myself. And I remember he picked me up by my bleeding arm and told me, "This is such a turn on." It was, it was just, any normal person would run from such an experience. Me? No.
The more girls that talk, the more scared they're going to become. And the more times that we talk, the more girls are going to try to shut up. And they call us snitches, by the way. We're dirty in the game.
What do you think makes a difference between someone that considers it their quote unquote mission to actually speak out and then turn their shitty experience into something good, or hide under the radar?
Well, I think certain personalities, Annie's always had this big personality, whether she was, on drugs, in the life, or out of the life. Her personality is her personality. She's just full of she's a powerhouse,
Yeah. No.
So it's what we, do we put it towards dark, or we put it towards light?
Yeah, and you're a little powerhouse too. You have to be a little bit feisty, I think, to do this kind of work. Because, like I said, and I understand it, but there's so many people I would like to speak to that have had experiences in what I've been through in this cult, and it's hard to get people. They have so many barriers, just like what we're talking about. They don't want their family to turn on them. They haven't processed the abuse. It takes a certain amount of freedom and courage to kind of actually say what happened to you. You have to look like a jackass. It's embarrassing. It hurts. Who the fuck wants to do any of that shit? I personally, Kelly, I feel, like that gal we were talking about in you. I just find it so gross what's going on and the lies that I experience. It's like, fuck you. You're not going to be intimidated. I'm not going to, not heal from this and just carry on with my life. This is fucking bullshit, and this needs to stop.
That's right. If we have to, if you don't stand up for kids.
Exactly. If everybody spoke out that had been through something and to me, that's doing the right thing. It's not just carrying on with your life. Again, I don't want to judge people because I understand. But you have almost a civic personal duty to actually, if you were traumatized, to actually speak out about it, because that's the only way, from my perspective, that this incredible amount of intergenerational abuse will actually stop. There's too many people that are experiencing things and know things that just want to live a quiet life, but that's not.
Well, like what Tom said in the video, he said he gets healing every time.
Yeah, I bet he does. Of course he does. I get a healing every time I do a video and speak to you or anything. It's if anybody's wondering if if there's any benefits to speaking out, Kelly will tell you, and I'll tell you, it does wonders. In fact, I don't even know if I could have carried on with my life not doing it. I didn't realize how fucking awesome it would be.
Well, I used to think through the craft of acting that I was getting my shit out, and I was, in a way, but it still was hiding behind a character.
Exactly. I felt exactly the same way you do.
I
know exactly what you're talking about.
I was going to my truth so that the character had truth, but you're still, under this guise of, it's not me, it's the character.
One of the major revelations I had when this COVID shit hit, and I was just bored out of my mind and started speaking out about Scientology.
Yeah.
I don't hide behind any character. It's the same thing as acting and the way of processing trauma. But like you said, fuck acting. I mean, first of all, I'm not going to go through all the protocols and shit. I'm not going to go through any of that. Kind of a dead thing. But I've gotten so much more trauma because I thought I was doing the same thing, Kelly. I'm like, and I was in trauma, but there was something, a layer of untruth because the character have a video is what you're doing, a channel where you can just speak the truth, how you really feel, not hiding behind a character. This is what I was always trying to do in acting the whole time.
Yeah.
Did you kind of experience the same thing with your video and becoming a director and leaving behind, like you just described? And actually
for me, Doug, I think becoming a director was the most healing. well, the most healing thing, but a growth that I needed, because, you know, as an actor, we're narcissist a bit, you know, we're pretty selfish. And
Narciss
so when you direct,
narciss
it's not about you. It's about the
right.
project. It's about the actors in front of you. It's not about you.
Mhm.
So for me, it was something that I had to do in order to grow in life.
That makes total sense to me. And yeah, you're right. I don't think, I mean, a lot of actors, at least that I met, are narcissists, but yeah, you have to have a certain amount of
Yeah,
narcissism to believe in
yeah,
yourself, to put something on or whatever. But I've experienced exactly what you did.
yeah.
Just getting off of yourself. And I'm not a director,
Mhm.
Kelly, but I've had to learn how to edit and do all this,
Oh
shit.
yeah,
I
you're
wanted to
doing
pull my
great.
hair out. Oh, thank you, man. But I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But what I'm saying is, it's something I believe in. It's not hiding behind a character. I'm not focused on me. I actually have to learn how to do lighting and edit and then write a little storyline. It's fucking, I'm not a director like you, but I can relate to exactly what you just said.
Yeah, yeah.
So bless the great reset, bless the pandemic, because
That's
dude, I would
right.
have continued on with my life as was, s-
That's right.
still wanting to be an actor, but man, everything got reevaluated during these last couple years.
That's right.
How about you? Did you go through?
Oh, God, what have we learned most? Well, I learned that I love being at home.
Yes, but I still miss being outside, going to the gym. I mean, it's crazy here where I
I
live,
love
Kelly.
not
It's
being
crazy
around
where I live.
people.
Me too, man. Are you a natural introvert like me, or
Well,
you just?
it's really funny. And I think most actors are both. They're
Mhm,
introverts, but they're also
mhm.
extroverts, you know. So,
Exactly.
but to be an extrovert is tiring. So you have to go home and like be like
Yeah,
shut down, because to be on,
yeah,
is a lot.
yeah.
Takes a lot out of you,
Man, I know exactly what you're talking about.
you know?
Um, what did you before we close off, and I'm gonna have you, say where people can find your stuff and
Yes,
everything
please.
like that, but final question I wanted to ask you is, these I've lived more experience in these last 2 years because of
Yeah.
what's been going on than, like, my entire lifetime, like, everything's changing so quickly. What have you if you had to sum up, what did you learn in these last couple years?
The hypocrisy at the highest. I mean, it's so in all of our face, the hypocrisy of everything, everything. Um, and I hate hypocrisy. And it is being revealed,
Hate
which
lie I
in order
lies
for
too.
there to be healing, there has to be revelation. So the world is going through it's this ugliness of seeing the truth, but you have to go through that in order for there to be change for the better.
I hope change for the better lies on the other end, because I feel like I'm going through a second dark night of the soul, because I
Yeah,
already went through this coming out of the cult. Let's just hope on
yeah,
the other end, because Kelly, we're gonna need a lot of healing, and we're gonna
yeah,
need a lot of people, like
yeah.
you and people actually delivering this kind of trauma help, not even just in the field that we're talking about. I think,
Many filled, yeah.
I mean, you haven't been through that necessarily yourself, but you can relate. And I think anybody listening can relate. Trauma is a universal subject, whether you're in a cult, sex trafficked, or you just have a narcissistic parent. It's a traumatizing world. And everybody, probably has some healing to do in their life. So even though, again, this is a totally different world, I don't want to claim to be on the level of these people, because I've watched your videos and I lived a privileged life compared to that. But it fucks me up when I watch that, because I
Oh,
know
I'm
what the
sorry.
trauma is they're talking. No, it needs to be powerful, Kelly. And these
Yeah,
people need to tell their story, and people need to not turn away. I love
yeah,
it. I don't
good.
like watching this kind of stuff, but I love it in the fact that I so happy that these people are speaking out, and for the fucking awesome work that you're doing, and that you're not just some just another narcissistic shitty actor going back to the studio under all the protocols and kissing ass. So I love you for that, by the way.
I go and talk to schools. I go and talk to colleges. I talk to whoever can listen, that the darkness, the depths of darkness that I came from, no one should ever go there.
There's a lot more suffering out there than there needs to be. There's a lot of shame associated with male sexual abuse and being victimized sexually. And the only way that we're really going to get to what we need to help these people is letting go of the shame. I go out and I share my story with as many people as I can. There are so many other men out there who have not exactly my story, but very similar stories. Men just don't speak out. And that's when I founded the Hope Project, a fellowship of other survivors that know their pain, know their experience, or at least familiar with it, and can support each other to hopefully going towards the healing process.
Hi, everyone. My name's Kelly Galindo, and I am directing a documentary called 26 Seconds. It's on global sex trafficking, which is a horrific problem that's growing faster than the sale of drugs. And the reason being is because a woman and a child can be sold over and over and over again, and a drug can only be sold once. People think that it's just happening in third world countries, and it's not. It's right in Orange County, Los Angeles, and throughout the United States. The documentary is about creating awareness and for people to step up. I wish everyone was here with me, because when you're actually here and looking at these girls' faces and hear their stories, it's heartbreaking. But I do want you to know that there is a happy ending. That changes the one life, the one little girl that gets rescued and restored and reintegrated. So all we can do is rescue one child one by one. So thank you so much, and I hope that you see my documentary, 26 Seconds.